The current pandemic, which has brought such troubling and strange changes to the rhythms of normal life across the world, naturally encourages us to reflect on our experience. It can also prompt us to look back at the experience of those who have gone before us. We might, for instance, take comfort, or perhaps feel alarm, at the way in which our own bewilderment at what has happened in the world can find a parallel in the incomprehension of earlier times. The ancient world of Greece and Rome often seems very far away, but it can also seem tellingly similar to our own. So Procopius, writing about a pandemic in the 6th century AD, the plague in the reign of the Emperor Justinian, noted that everyone wanted to try to give clever explanations of the illness and its course, but all such attempts came to nothing. Ancient writers also strike other notes that ring true to us, listing all the different kinds of symptom, as if somehow describing the detail of the illness might be a way to control it. Or when they describe how a plague might move from city to city on sea routes, something that might set us in mind of the way in which air travel has come under scrutiny more and more in the current crisis. Or when ancient writers describe the way in which customary and respectful funeral rituals for the dead are neglected, something that might set us in mind of socially distanced funerals, or in some locations, even more undignified treatment of the dead in the current emergency. The ancients also have things to tell us about the effects of social isolation. They remind us, for instance, that not everyone has the same opportunity to shut themselves away in a comfortable home. Procopius tells us that as the plague developed, people were unwilling even to give heed to their friends when they called to them, and they shut themselves up in their rooms and pretended that they did not hear, although their doors were being beaten down. Another historian, Thucydides, writing about the plague in Athens, remarks that there were some people who, if they were afraid to visit each other, they perished through neglect. This is a take on social isolation which is different from our own. With us, medical advice has encouraged us to keep away from each other to avoid spreading disease. But that ancient perspective still gives us a timely reminder not to forget those whom we cannot see, especially as we have all the advantages that technology can offer us to support our friends and neighbours, even people on the other side of the world, in ways which would have seemed incredible to the ancients. One thing which pandemics can also prompt, both in the past and now, is a certain kind of defensiveness, or even a willingness to find fault with others. This sometimes comes out online in arenas like Twitter, in the form of people piling on to attack those who are found wanting. Whether it is shoppers queuing up when the shops open for the first time, and it is not as if there has not been urging on at a high level to go out and spend money, or people ignoring rules on social distancing, whether on the beach or on a demonstration. The ancient world also shows this unattractive phenomenon of blaming people. Moralizing historians like to chart human failings, as when the historian Thucydides reports how during the plague in Athens, people resolved to spend money quickly and enjoy themselves, regarding their lives and riches as alike things of a day. But if we want to see it, the ancient experience of plague, with all its suffering and loss, also shows us something rather different, something which shows a much better side of humanity. Just as the selfless efforts, both great and small, from so many have played such a part in trying to manage and mitigate the suffering of the current time, both here in Liverpool and around the world. The historians of the ancient world offer us glimmering shards of light from their time in talking about exceptional selflessness of a kind which we can readily recognize and admire. Procopius tells us about an imperial administrator named Theodorus, who even spent his own money on those whose bodies were unclaimed. He kept burying the bodies which were not cared for. Similarly, we hear of the selfless work of carers, and those who were attending the sick were in a constant state of exhaustion and had a most difficult time of it throughout. For this reason, everybody pitied them no less than the sufferers, because of the great hardships which they were undergoing. These may be testimonies from a world far removed from our own in time, but they remind us wonderfully of the power of care for others, of love, even in the very worst of times.